We'd like to thank CA Manila for giving us another opportunity to be part of the Cyber Attack Conference. And today we're going to talk about the new behavior, what has changed over the last few months because of the pandemic in terms of the lifestyle and work of our workforce, and what the role of cyber AI is in terms of securing the future of work. So let's start by talking about this huge observation over the last few months, and that is organizations and companies started collaborating with big companies like Microsoft, Google, wherein they started increasing the seats of Microsoft Office 365 and using Teams as one of their modes of communication. And you will also see that there is an adoption increase in G Suite or even in Google Meet. And in terms of using the mobile apps, there's a 90% increase in the use of mobile apps for business so that they can do their jobs at the comfort of where they are, whether they are at home or probably in the supermarket, or um, anywhere else that they need to be by using their mobile phones. It's also in the news that over the last few months, there was a huge increase in using Zoom as, again, one of the primary means of their communication and teleconferencing. And what we've learned along with that observation are a lot of things. The first one would be more and more people are starting to work out of hours. What does that mean? It's not the usual 8 to 5 p.m. or 9 to 6 p.m. that people are logging in and working. We have seen also increase in activity even beyond those usual work hours and even on weekend and public holidays. Along with this out of hours behavior is a huge file transfer. Whether it is that employee bringing home their files and documentation at home so that they can work, we've also seen that huge file transfer is attributed to the malicious activities of certain attackers. And these are data exfiltration that are really not just the usual activity that the employees would do to bring home their work. Another thing we've learned over the last few months would be an increase in ransomware. While I was watching the Tampa Security Conference, there was a section there where FBI talked for hours, for an hour or probably less about the different ransomware activities happening worldwide, and it's an epic proportion. Here in the Philippines, probably a month or 2 months ago, we saw a lot of schools being attacked by a ransomware, and that's that's something that's even more prevalent these days. Again, another observation we've seen is an increase in lateral movement because more and more devices are introduced in the digital estate of a certain organization. Certain attackers are using this to live off the land, meaning they are constantly searching and hunting for devices that they can compromise. Whether this should be used as C2 communication and control or something that they can use to execute their payload, you can see that there is lateral movement from these attackers searching one by one open devices that they can use and exfiltrate. And similarly, we've seen numerous alerts to SaaS accounts wherein unusual logins from different or unusual locations as well as anomalous account administrations can be seen. And this is because, of course, as we said a while ago, as we've introduced it a while ago, the observation is that more and more people are into SaaS and cloud and using digital collaboration. And one of the final things we observed is the rise in banking trojans, whether it's Quackbot infections or Emotet, which should have been dead probably 6 years ago, and it's rising again. We've seen more and more cases of these malwares coming back and rising up and making sure that they get to attack more and more companies and organizations, especially banks. So what happened was the behavior of the pattern of work changed, and we call this certain behavior the dynamic workforce. What is this dynamic workforce all about? It's where an organization started accelerating their digital transformation projects. They want to have more footprint on the cloud so that they can do a lot of things without having to be on premise, which means that um, employees who are working from home, introducing devices that are not approved, or maybe applications that are unapproved, are going to be part of the things that the security team will have to monitor. And without knowing or without having that malicious intention, these certain devices could bring with them certain malware and vulnerabilities. The dynamic workforce is also fluid. Now, whether the fluid working environment is here to stay or not, the idea is they can work at any time of the day, whether it's super early in the morning or late or during or lunch break or even after office hours. You can see that there is already that kind of behavior. And the thing is, these low-lying cyber criminals are trying to thrive on this kind of disruption and change. What is important though is that a lot of these things have to be monitored by the security team. Now, most organizations are using legacy securities, which is what uh, the reality is these legacy securities won't be able to keep pace with what is happening because of the changes. But there is this one aspect called cyber AI through the use of unsupervised machine learning that is adapting to the new patterns of work. The cyber AI should be able to know now the new normal at speed and scale. The cyber AI now is trying to help compared to the legacy securities. Um, Look at the changes that are happening in that workforce, in that new behavior brought about by the situation, whether it's remote working from home or not being on premise. The cyber AI is able to monitor that. The thing is, with the adoption of the cyber AI to these new changes in the pattern of work, it's also able to autonomously detect the threats that are ongoing, whether it's on cloud and on premise. Now, what is the cyber AI all about? Let me introduce to you what Darktrace immune system is all about. And these are the three elements that make up the Darktrace immune system. The enterprise immune system is a self-learning AI detection of our platform wherein it knows the pattern of life or behavior so that if there are any deviations in the normal pattern of life, you will be triggered or alerted by means that you're comfortable with. And then you have the cyber AI analyst that mimics the human intuition by reducing that triaging time to up to 92% and making sure you have a force multiplier doing a first line of investigation for you. And the last but not least, this element called Darktrace Antigene is responsible for doing autonomous response. It acts like a brain, making split decisions so that you have a autonomous surgical targeted response to that kind of attack. Now, all these three things make up a good mechanism for companies to be able to detect, investigate, and respond right away, regardless of where their digital asset is. The workforce could be in the email, staff, or even the clients at the comfort of their own homes. And these infrastructures could be also on the cloud or on premise, and whether they are on operational technology or SCADA, all of these things with the use of Darktrace immune system can be visible to that security team. So the cyber AI for dynamic workforce we mentioned a while ago is primarily looking at the cloud and SaaS. These are the major partners that we can integrate with. But the idea is that you have to have a certain visibility and security when you're in the SaaS and cloud. And more often than not, when I speak to new clients these days, the primary problem would be how do we secure the assets that we have in the cloud? The cyber AI can learn the behavior of the users in the organization to regardless of whether you are on Microsoft 365 or G Suite or Dropbox or Salesforce. It has a contextual understanding across the entire digital organization, which means that whether you have a cloud or on-premise deployment, the cyber AI will be able to understand the correlation of everything so that it can detect the full range of threats. Um, from the slightest indicator of compromise to account takeovers or critical misconfigurations and non-compliances, that cyber AI should be able to investigate that. Um, Not only investigate and detect, but of course, respond to those attacks. We also have the cyber AI for email. The number one uh, vector of attack right now is email, wherein probably 84% of all the attacks are coming from email. The idea is the cyber AI for email is moving away from the traditional email border security, wherein the security teams have to feed that email security, email border security with what is a good known and bad link or address. The email, cyber AI for email is different from that in such a way that it studies the pattern of life or pattern of work of that certain user in that email life cycle that it has. So we're moving away from the traditional knowing of what is good and bad, but studying and understanding the content and context of the email life cycle, so that we can also investigate and respond in email. So the full range of email threats, we will be able to detect that whether it's spear phishing or data loss or social engineering, which has been prevalent in the last few months. We were even able to detect an incident where a CDC was used as an email address to make sure that it's able to do spear phishing to other organizations. So that is cyber AI for email. We also have the AI analyst through the cyber AI, and this is a culmination of about 2 to 3 years research and development team of Darktrace, which is composed of about 30 PhDs in math. What they did was they analyzed the behavior of the human analyst together with the married it with the algorithm and thus versus the cyber AI analyst. So I mentioned a while ago it's a force multiplier. It's the first line of defense in terms of investigation because it saves the security team a lot of crucial time. Um, the reality is that a lot of the security teams right now have gaps in terms of forensic and threat hunting skills. And when you have a cyber AI or an AI analyst that is doing this for you, it's helping you reduce the triaging time to up to 92% because the cyber threat investigation and interpretation is now automated. This is something that we've seen that is badly needed by a lot of the companies for the last few months. And this is the answer to that kind of need. By using the AI analyst, you have an automated investigation. Last but not least, of course, world's first autonomous response. Um, you need to have a certain element in the platform that allows you to do autonomous surgical interruption of attacks, meaning it can quickly decide on its own how to how to respond to an attack without having to disrupt the whole business. And this is what the autonomous response capability of that trace immune system can do. Um, it has no impact on the normal or legitimate activity. For others, it's business as usual, but it will stop that specific threat of depending on a specific port and time that it needs so that it can respond to that attack. So now it frees up the human teams of what they need to focus. They don't need to focus on looking for that specific device that is being attacked, unplug the port, go back to their workstations. The autonomous response capability can do that so that they can focus on other things like remediation, investigation, etc. So the thing is, with all of these aggressive attacks that are happening right now, the idea is that the cyber AI is what you can bring to a machine fight. It no longer is about a human trying to fight all these offensive AIs and battling the machine fight. It's the human, and with the use of the cyber AI, going head to head with offensive AI so that they can make sure that they are free from cyber threats. So with that, we will move on to questions and answers. Any questions on the floor?